Welcome to Vital Signs and Verdicts, where medicine meets the law and the truth gets put under the microscope. I'm Liam, a former hospital administrator turned whistleblower, and your host. I'm joined by our panel. Hope, a former surgical RN who lived through her own systemic failure. Pete, who holds a doctorate in psychology and helps firms pick juries for high-profile cases. And Dr. Tyler, a medical doctor with a Juris Doctorate who has testified in federal court and before Congress.
Before we begin, everything we discuss today reflects our professional opinions based on publicly available information, including the court filings in this case. Nothing here is legal advice, medical advice, or a statement of fact beyond what is documented.
Welcome back to Vital Signs and Verdicts, the show where we break down the cases shaping the future of healthcare, accountability, and patient rights. And for our new listeners, you picked one heck of a day to join us. Tonight, we're talking about the Richardson-Edmonds case against Cox Health and Cox Medical Center, Branson. This is a local Missouri case with national attention and potentially historic legal implications. Here's the quick background. Hope.
This is a wrongful death case involving a Gulf War veteran whose widow is fighting for answers. And she's doing it pro se, meaning she's representing herself, against a multi-billion-dollar hospital system, one of the top 10 largest employers in the entire state of Missouri.
From day one, this case has been dramatic. The plaintiff's very first move was to request a temporary restraining order, or TRO, to make sure the hospital preserved every version of her husband's medical records.
But the day before that hearing was supposed to happen in Taney County, the defense pulled the case into federal court. Once there, the plaintiff fought to bring it back home, and she won. But before sending it back, the federal judge issued an order on February 19th, reminding the defendants of their duty to preserve all evidence, including medical records and emails.
Fast forward to March 4th, the day the case was officially remanded back to Taney County. That same day, KY3 News aired a story revealing that Cox Health had begun a massive electronic medical record migration on March 1st, switching from Cerner to Epic.
The news report described patients not receiving proper medications, delays, and disruptions during the transition. Even though the case was remanded on the 4th, it didn't appear on the Taney County docket until March 10th. And on that very day, the plaintiff filed another TRO request, now with even more urgency, because the hospital was actively migrating the very records at the center of the lawsuit.
The hearing was held on March 24th, and the plaintiff lost. The judge said he needed more evidence to justify emergency relief.
Before we get to our experts, let's recap what happened at the March 24th hearing, because this is where things took a very strange turn.
So, during that hearing, the defense made 3 major claims, and each one raised eyebrows. Claim number 1 was that 0% of records are lost during migration.
When the plaintiff asked the defense attorney what percentage of records are typically lost during a Cerner to Epic migration, he didn't hesitate. He didn't qualify it. He didn't say rare or unlikely. He said 0. 0% is lost.
That's a bold statement, especially now that the plaintiff has filed 6 authoritative sources showing that data loss, flattened notes, missing history, and metadata destruction are documented risks in every major EHR migration.
The second claim was the plaintiff already has 3 versions of the records. That should be enough.
This one stunned the courtroom. The plaintiff tried to explain that the 3 sets of records are not the same, that they contain significant differences, missing entries, and altered information.
Instead of addressing that, the defense simply told the judge she has 3 versions. That should be enough. As if the existence of multiple conflicting records somehow reduces the need for preservation, instead of raising a giant red flag.
Which takes us to the third claim when the defense attorney said, "She's right here. She has all your emails."
When the plaintiff pointed out that some emails had already been deleted, which is a serious issue during litigation, the defense attorney pointed to a woman sitting in the audience and said, "She's here right now. She has all of your emails."
This matters because during litigation, hospitals are legally required to preserve everything related to the case: emails, notes, medical records, metadata, audit trails, and version history.
It's not optional. It's not if we feel like it, it's a legal duty. And pointing to someone in the audience as proof of preservation is unusual to say the least.
And that brings us to today. The plaintiff has just filed a 63-page motion to reconsider, supported by newly discovered evidence, federal, academic, industry, and professional sources, all showing that Cerner to Epic migrations carry documented, predictable, and irreversible risks to data integrity, metadata, audit trails, and version history.
This filing is significant, and depending on how the judge views it, the defense could be facing a very serious problem.
But before we get into the legal implications, we need to break down this migration issue, because it's been tossed around a lot lately, and most people don't know what actually happens behind the scenes. So tonight, we're bringing in someone who does, to help us understand what a Cerner to Epic migration really is, and why experts say it's one of the riskiest moments for medical records. We're joined by Evan Rourke, a 20-year veteran of electronic health records, or EHR migrations. The software currently used by Cox Branson is Cerner, and they are moving everything over, or migrating everything over, to Epic. Evan here is a former Cerner implementation lead and consultant on Epic conversions nationwide. Evan, the motion filed today says that the first few weeks of the migration window is the moment of highest risk. For people who've never seen one from the inside, what actually happens?
All right, let's break this down in a way that makes sense for everyone listening. Imagine you're told to move an entire city, not the people, but the buildings themselves. Every house, every school, every hospital, every brick. Now imagine you have to lift each building off its foundation, carry it across town, and set it down perfectly on a new foundation. And you're told, don't lose a single brick. That's what a Cerner to Epic migration is. Every medical record is a building. Every timestamp, every audit trail, every medication entry. Those are the bricks. And here's the truth. When you lift a building, bricks fall. Some crack, some crumble. And once a brick crumbles, you can't glue it back together and pretend it's the same brick. That's metadata. That's version history. That's the audit trail that once it's gone, it's gone.
And here's why that matters in healthcare terms. Those bricks, the timestamps, the edits, the who did what when, they tell the story of the patient's care. They show whether a note was added later, whether a medication order was changed, whether something was charted after the fact. If those pieces crumble during the move, you don't just lose data, you lose the truth of what happened.
In legal terms, what the plaintiff is really after is the chain of custody of the medical record. Chain of custody means who accessed the record, what they changed, when they changed it, why it was changed, and whether the record you're looking at today is the same record that existed at the time of care. If you lose the audit trail, you lose the chain of custody. And if you lose the chain of custody, you lose the ability to prove whether the record was altered.
Jurors don't need a medical degree to get this. If you show them 3 different versions of the same record, and all 3 existed before any migration, they're going to ask the same question. Why are there 3? And if the hospital then performs a massive migration that could wipe out the who did what when, jurors are going to see that as convenient. Even if it's accidental, it looks like the perfect storm for losing the very evidence the plaintiff says proves her case.
Exactly. The 3 conflicting records didn't happen during migration. They existed before the migration even started. That means the discrepancies can't be blamed on the move. But here's the danger. The migration could erase the digital fingerprints that show who created those discrepancies. If the audit trail gets flattened or metadata drops during the move, you're left with a clean-looking record, but no way to see the edits, the timing, or the authorship. It's like someone handing you a rebuilt building with all new bricks and saying, "See? Nothing wrong here."
And that's exactly what the plaintiff is afraid of, that the migration could accidentally wipe out the evidence of what happened before the migration. Evan, thank you for calling in and chatting with us today. The way you explain things helps us all understand the process better.
Anytime. Thank you for having me.
And that brings us to the legal side of this. If a judge sees that multiple conflicting records existed before migration, the hospital is now migrating systems, and migration is known to destroy metadata and audit trails. The question becomes, what happens if the migration wipes out the very evidence the plaintiff needs? To help us understand how a judge looks at that, especially when newly discovered evidence is filed, we've brought in someone who's been on the other side of this. We have a duo joining us, former Oklahoma prosecuting attorney now in her own private practice, Marianne Hall, who was just published in the Harvard Law Journal and has been invited to teach legal ethics at Stanford next semester, is on the line with her husband, Judge Marcus Hall, who has handled preservation orders, emergency TROs, and evidentiary disputes in high-stakes cases. These two have experienced it all in their time, in front of and behind the bench. Welcome.
Thanks for having us on. We've been listening to what your panel laid out, and let me tell you, from a judge's point of view, this situation is a flashing red light. Let me break this down in everyday terms. When a judge hears a case for the first time, they're trying to answer one basic question. Is there a real risk that evidence could be lost, destroyed, or changed before I can fully hear this case?
That's the entire purpose of a temporary restraining order, to freeze things in place long enough for the court to understand what's going on.
Now, here's where this gets serious. The plaintiff has just filed new evidence showing that this hospital system is in the middle of a massive electronic record migration.
And that migrations are known to drop data, flatten notes, and wipe out the digital fingerprints that show who changed what and when.
That's not speculation. That's documented in federal studies, industry guides, and professional standards. So from a judge's perspective, this new filing answers the question he had at the last hearing. He said he needed more evidence of immediate harm.
Well, now he's got it.
And here's the part that would concern any judge. The three conflicting versions of the medical record
Existed before the migration even started. That means the discrepancies can't be blamed on the move.
they were already there. So now the judge is looking at a situation where there are already unexplained inconsistencies.
And the hospital is now migrating systems, and migration is known to erase the very audit trails that would explain those inconsistencies.
That combination is dangerous.
Because if the migration wipes out the who did what when,
Then the court loses the ability to determine whether the records were altered, and by whom. Judges do not like that. They do not like the idea that evidence could disappear on their watch.
especially after a federal judge already reminded the defendants of their duty to preserve everything back on February 19th.
So what does this new filing do?
It puts the judge in a position where he has to seriously consider whether the defense's actions
Or even just the timing of this migration.
could compromise the integrity of the evidence. And if a judge believes that even accidental loss of evidence is likely, he is well within his authority to issue a TRO to stop the bleeding.
So let me see if I understand. Let me put it plainly. If the migration erases the audit trail, the case becomes nearly impossible to try fairly.
No judge wants that.
No judge wants to be the one who let the evidence disappear. So yes, this filing is significant.
And yes, the defense could be in trouble here.
Because once a judge sees that the risk is real, immediate, and irreversible, the court is obligated to step in.
Judge, the big question we're hearing from listeners is this. The TRO was denied. Why is the plaintiff allowed to come back and ask again? Isn't she beating a dead horse?
Not at all. And here's why. A TRO can be reconsidered when new evidence emerges. Evidence the judge didn't have the first time. And from what I've seen, this new filing contains exactly that. Federal research, peer-reviewed studies, industry standards, and documentation showing that the migration itself poses a real risk to the integrity of the records. The judge denied the TRO because he didn't have enough proof of immediate harm. Now he does. So legally, she's not beating a dead horse. She's responding to the judge's request.
Okay, we have a caller. You are on Vital Signs and Verdicts. What is your question?
So is the defense just that cocky? They told the judge there was a 0% chance of record loss. They said the plaintiff already has 3 records. They even said someone in the audience had all the deleted emails. Can they just say that and get away with it?
Well, let me put this gently but clearly. Judges don't like being misled, intentionally or accidentally. If a party tells the court something that later turns out to be untrue, the judge will remember that.
Now, I'm not saying anyone lied, but I am saying this. When a hospital claims 0% chance of data loss during a Cerner to Epic migration, and the plaintiff then files 6 authoritative sources showing that data loss is common, the judge is going to take a second look.
And if the judge concludes the defense minimized the risks or downplayed the discrepancies or glossed over the preservation issues,
that can hurt them badly.
Next caller, Jamma Hall from Springfield. You are on. Go ahead.
What happens if the judge figures out the records were changed, or that the migration wiped out the audit trail?
That's where things get serious. If the judge believes evidence was altered, destroyed, or allowed to disappear, even accidentally, the court can impose sanctions.
Those sanctions can range from fines to adverse inference instructions, all the way to striking defenses. In plain English, if the audit trail disappears, the judge can tell the jury, you may assume the missing evidence would have supported the plaintiff.
That's devastating for a defense.
Caller, what is your question?
What if after all this, the records say nothing bad happened? What happens to her case then?
Then the case proceeds on the merits. A TRO isn't about proving the whole case. It's about preserving the evidence so the case can be proven.
If the records ultimately show no wrongdoing, then the defense will argue that at trial. But the plaintiff has a right to see the full, unaltered, original records with metadata, timestamps, and version history before anyone reaches that conclusion.
That's why preservation matters.
Vital signs and verdicts. Heather, what is your question?
How is she even still holding on against a big league firm like this? Most people would have folded.
Well, let me tell you something from my years on the bench. Judges respect persistence, especially when it's backed by evidence, organization, and a clear understanding of the law.
Representing yourself against a major hospital system is no small task. But when a pro se litigant files a motion this detailed, this well-supported, and this timely, the court pays attention.
And frankly, big firms don't always expect a pro se plaintiff to fight this hard or this effectively. That can change the dynamic in the courtroom.
Before we let you two go, bottom line, how does this new filing change the landscape?
It puts the judge in a position where he has to act.
The plaintiff has shown the risk is real, the harm is immediate,
And the consequences are irreversible.
I know you both have got to get going, but thank you for spending some time with us tonight and walking our listeners through what goes through the minds of those in the black robes.
Thank you for having us.
We'll be keeping up with this case. It's fascinating from the legal side, the medical side, and the patient rights side. And I'll tell you this, whatever happens here is going to have long-term implications.
No doubt about it.
We appreciate you both. Take care. All right, panel, let's unpack what Marianne and Judge Hall just said, because that was a lot. If the audit trail disappears, the truth disappears with it. So let's talk about what that means for this case.
From a nursing standpoint, the audit trail is everything. It's the only way to know whether a note was added later, whether a medication order was changed, or whether something was charted after the fact. If that disappears, you don't just lose data, so you lose accountability.
And here's where I think things get tricky. If the records end up incomplete, even if it's accidental, jurors are going to assume the worst. They're going to think the hospital had something to hide. But if the records come out looking too clean after a migration, that's known to flatten notes and drop metadata. Jurors are going to be suspicious of that too. Either way, the defense is in a tough spot.
I'm going to push back on that, Pete. If the records come out clean, but the metadata is gone, then the records aren't actually clean. They're hollow. They're missing the fingerprints, the who, the when, the why. A medical record without metadata is like a crime scene without evidence. It looks tidy, but it tells you nothing. And legally, that's a problem for the defense, not the plaintiff.
Sure, but jurors don't think in metadata. They think in stories. If the hospital hands over a neat-looking record and says, "See, nothing happened," some jurors will buy that.
Not if the plaintiff can show the judge and the jury that the audit trail is missing because of the migration. Judges know that missing metadata is missing evidence. And missing evidence almost always hurts the party who was responsible for preserving it.
And let's not forget, the 3 conflicting records existed before the migration, so the discrepancies can't be blamed on the move. If the migration wipes out the audit trail, the hospital loses the ability to explain those differences.
And that's the heart of it. If the migration erases the who did what when, the judge is left with a case where the truth may no longer be recoverable. All right, let's shift gears. Judge Hall laid out the legal stakes, but now we need to talk about the practical side. What actually happens next? Because listeners are asking, what if the TRO is denied again? What if it's granted? How do we even know if all the records are there? Who gathers them? Let's break it down. 1. A forensic team is appointed, sometimes court-approved, sometimes agreed upon.
These aren't hospital employees. These are independent specialists, often former FBI digital forensics people, cybersecurity experts, or certified EHR forensic analysts.
And yes, they're expensive. $5,000 is actually low. Some teams charge $10,000 to $30,000 depending on the system.
2. They don't ask the hospital for files, they access the system directly.
They image the servers, they capture the logs, they extract the audit trails, they preserve the metadata.
And that's the only way you know you're getting everything, not just what someone chose to hand over.
3. The plaintiff can still subpoena records, but that's not enough.
A subpoena gets you documents. A forensic order gets you the truth behind the documents.
Subpoenas rely on the hospital to search their own system. A forensic order means someone else is doing the searching.
4. How do you know you got everything?
You compare the Cerner version, the Epic version, the legacy archives, the audit logs, the metadata, and the version history.
And if something is missing, the forensic team can see the gap. If something was deleted, they can see the deletion. If something was altered, they can see the alteration.
All right, the lines are lighting up. Let's take some calls because people have questions about what happens now. We have Matilda on the line from Forsyth. Go ahead.
Okay, so you all said a forensic team could cost $30,000 or more. Who pays for that? The plaintiff? The hospital? The court?
Great question. It depends on how the judge structures the order. If the judge believes the hospital created the risk by migrating during litigation, he can order the hospital to pay for the forensic preservation. If the judge sees it as neutral, he can split the cost or require the plaintiff to pay upfront and recover it later. But here's the key. Courts don't order forensic imaging lightly. If they do, it's because they believe the evidence is at real risk.
And jurors don't like the idea of a plaintiff paying tens of thousands just to get the truth. That can backfire on the defense.
All right, we've got a caller on the line with a question a lot of people are thinking but haven't said out loud. Brady, you are on. Go ahead.
Look, I'm just going to say it. Is it reasonable to believe the hospital already wiped or altered the records months ago? And now the migration will make it look like the system just lost them. They stalled for 9 months. They switched courts, they delayed hearings, now they're migrating. If they wiped things a year ago, how would anyone ever know?
Is it possible? Yes. Is it provable? Only if the audit trail still exists. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If someone altered or deleted records before the migration and the migration wipes out the audit trail, then yes, the hospital could say, oh, that must have been lost during the migration. And no one could disprove it.
And that's why the timing looks suspicious to people. The discrepancies in the 3 records existed before the migration. So whatever happened earlier. The migration just creates the perfect fog.
And jurors will absolutely see it that way. If the hospital had 9 months to produce records and still didn't hand over a complete set, and then the migration accidentally wipes out the audit trail, jurors won't call that coincidence. They'll call it a cover-up.
And here's the key point. If the audit trail is gone, you cannot prove when the changes were made. You can't prove whether they were made last week, last month, or last year.
Lauren, you are on vital signs and verdicts.
So then what? If the records are wiped, is the case over?
No, ironically, it can make the case stronger. If the judge believes the hospital allowed evidence to be destroyed, even accidentally, the court can impose sanctions. That can include fines, shifting the burden of proof, or telling the jury they may assume the missing evidence would have supported the plaintiff. That's devastating for a defense.
And jurors punish cover-ups more than mistakes. If they think the hospital hid something, the damages go up. Way up.
Bert from Kirbyville, you are on the air.
Would the hospital try to stop a forensic team from coming in? Is that what all the delays were about?
No hospital wants a forensic team in their servers. It's like letting someone search your entire house with a flashlight and a camera.
And yes, delays, removals to federal court, procedural maneuvers, those can all be used to buy time.
And if the migration finishes before a TRO is granted, the hospital can say, oops, the system overwrote the logs. Nothing we can do. That's why timing matters.
Kerrigan, you are on Vital Signs and Verdicts.
If this could be a landmark case, will the judge rule differently? Could he rule against her because she's pro se?
No judge wants to be reversed on appeal. Ruling against someone because they're pro se would be reversible error.
But judges do know when a case has national implications. They know their ruling will be scrutinized.
John, you are on the air.
It took the plaintiff 9 months to get the original records, and she says they're still not complete. How do we know the hospital didn't change the records a year ago, and now they'll just blame any differences on the migration? And honestly, could all the delays, the move to federal court, the back and forth, could that have been stalling so they could wipe everything clean? I feel like the moment the plaintiff said she needed a TR, the hospital should have said, here you go. Here are all the records you could possibly need, especially knowing then they are about to do this record migration.
That's a tough question and a fair one. Let's break it down. Let me be very direct. Is it possible the records were altered months ago? Yes. Hospitals have full access to their own systems. Is it possible the migration could conveniently wash away the digital fingerprints of those changes? Also, yes. But here's the key. Without the audit trail, you can't prove when the changes were made or who made them. That's why the timing of this migration is so concerning.
Look, I've worked in hospitals. I've seen how long records requests can drag out. But 9 months, 3 conflicting versions, missing emails, a migration starting right when the case was remanded. Even if it's all coincidence, it looks like stalling. And in healthcare, when something looks bad, it usually is. Okay, William, you are on vital signs and verdicts. Go ahead with your question.
I gotta admit, when I first heard about this case, I thought, whatever. Here is some chick who thinks she's going to go against a hospital for money. I was one of her biggest adversaries online. But now that things are laying out the way they are, even I am looking at this saying to myself, she is onto something. Why else would there be all this dancing around the subject? Moving venues to stall, stalling again, and then the topper is the hearing and listening to the defense say things that anyone would scoff at, like 0% loss of files. I change phones, and I lose contacts and apps. Oh, and Natasha, if you are listening, this is Will, and I'm sorry, there is obviously more going on here than anyone could comprehend at first. So I'm sorry and thank you for pushing ahead.
Jurors don't need a PhD to see a pattern. Delay the records, move the case to federal court, delay again, start a migration, claim 0% chance of loss, say the plaintiff already has enough records, produce a mystery woman with all the emails. Jurors will look at that and say they were buying time. Even if the hospital didn't intend it, the optics are terrible.
And here's the real danger. If the migration finishes before a forensic team gets in, the hospital can blame every discrepancy on the migration, every missing entry, every altered timestamp, every flattened note. They can shrug and say, oh, that must have happened during the transfer.
So let's answer the caller's question directly. Could the records have been altered a year ago? Yes. Could the migration make it impossible to prove that? Yes. Could the delays have helped that happen? Yes. Intentionally or not. And if that's what happened, then what?
If the judge believes the hospital allowed evidence to be destroyed, whether last week or last year, that's called spoliation. And spoliation can lead to sanctions, fines, adverse inference instructions, or even striking defenses. In plain English, if the evidence is gone, the judge can tell the jury to assume the missing evidence would have supported the plaintiff.
And jurors punish cover-ups more than mistakes. If they think the hospital wiped the records, game over. And remember, the 3 conflicting records existed before the migration. So if the audit trail disappears now, the hospital loses the ability to explain those differences.
Because if the migration finishes without a TRO, the truth may never be recoverable, and the court will be left with a case where the evidence is permanently compromised. Daria, you are on vital signs and verdicts. What is your question?
I am doing an article for College of the Ozarks on this case and would like to ask your panel a few questions. First, let's be real. The hospital can't want a forensic team poking around in their systems. Would they try to stop that? Is that what they've been doing all along?
Look, no hospital wants a forensic team in their servers. It's intrusive, expensive, and it exposes everything, not just the patient's record, but the system's internal processes.
And yes, hospitals often resist forensic imaging. They prefer to produce records themselves because it gives them control.
And that's why the plaintiff is pushing so hard. If the hospital controls the search, the plaintiff has to trust the very people she believes altered the records.
And that's the tension here. A forensic team removes that control.
Okay, second. Hypothetically, wouldn't the hospital prefer to just settle this?
There are 3 big reasons institutions settle before things explode. Reputation management. Hospitals depend on public trust. A case that keeps generating headlines, community stories, and questions about record integrity is a nightmare for them.
What would something like this be worth if they settled out of court? Or how much could a jury award if it goes all the way to trial?
Once a case reaches a jury, the hospital loses control. Juries can be unpredictable, especially when the story involves a grieving family and disputed medical records. So in many cases, settlement becomes the cheaper option compared to the risk of a public trial.
Why haven't they settled yet? What would something like this be worth if they settled out of court? Or how much could a jury award if it goes all the way to trial?
This is where the nuance comes in. Hospitals often assume a pro se plaintiff will give up. They may believe they can win on procedure, not facts. They may fear that settling signals admission of wrongdoing, which could trigger more claims.
What could a settlement be worth?
Pete, what do you think?
Great question. In many cases, hospitals absolutely prefer to settle before things get messy. Reputation matters. And once the public starts asking questions, the risk goes up for them. Now, as for what a settlement could be worth, we can't put a number on it, but we can explain how these things are calculated. There are economic damages, like medical bills and lost income. There are non-economic damages like pain, suffering, and loss of companionship. And then there are punitive damages, which only come into play if a jury believes there was deception or reckless behavior. That's where things can get very serious for a hospital. Punitive damages are designed to send a message, and juries can award amounts that are far higher than what a hospital would ever offer privately. So yes, sometimes settling early is the cheaper option for them. But whether they do that depends on how confident they are in their records, their decisions, and how much risk they're willing to take in front of a jury.
So if you were the plaintiff, do you want them to settle, or do you take it all the way and just see what happens with a jury?
Here's how I look at it. When a hospital is confident in its records, confident in its decisions, and confident in its transparency, they act like it. They hand things over. They answer questions. They cooperate. And that's not what we've seen here. What we've seen instead is delay, resistance, and a level of defensiveness that raises more questions than it answers. And when an institution behaves that way, it tells you something about where the truth probably lives. So if you're asking what I would do based on their behavior to date, I wouldn't settle just to make it go away. I would take it all the way through the process, because the only place you get full transparency, full accountability, and a full record is in a courtroom. A settlement might protect their reputation. A trial protects the truth. And at this point, the truth matters more.
My concern, if I'm the hospital, that isn't just the lawsuit. It's the public, because it is no longer just about some woman suing a hospital for money. No matter what happened, true or perceived, this story resonates. Just think of the sheer amount of social media attention this case has already generated. We're not talking about a handful of comments. We're talking about hundreds of former patients and families stepping forward publicly, saying they too felt something went wrong, and even more, reading along. In a town this size, that matters. People know each other. People talk. And when a hospital starts looking like a place where too many families have the same kind of story, juries pay attention. And then you look at who this happened to. This wasn't a stranger passing through. This was their neighbor, a husband of almost 20 years, a dad who showed up for after-school activities, a man who raised 4 successful kids, a brand new grandfather, a couple who had finally bought their first home together just days before he died. And now there's a widow standing in that place alone. A widow who has seemed open, honest, and heartbreakingly transparent about what she and her husband went through. She has overnight become this local activist for patient rights, talking about a program that would ensure every hospital patient has a third-party advocate to make sure that in our darkest hours when we can speak for ourselves, someone is who has our health and best interests, fighting for us and demanding we are treated as humans and not just charts or payments. And then there's one thing she shared that I can't shake, and I don't think a jury will either. It was the last email her husband ever wrote to the hospital. At the end of it, he wrote, "Why did you try to kill me? And if you didn't mean to, why didn't you stop?" Those words stay with you. They stay with me. And you can bet they will stay with 12 people sitting in a jury box. So if I'm the hospital, I'm terrified of that. Not because of the lawsuit, but because of the story, because of the humanity, because of the community watching, because of the pattern emerging in plain sight. And that's why, if this goes to a jury, I see the potential for very large awards, not because anyone is chasing money, but because juries respond to truth, to loss, and to the feeling that something preventable wasn't prevented. That's the risk the hospital is facing right now.
We can't speculate on dollar amounts, but we can say this. The value of a case increases when records are missing, audit trails are incomplete, evidence was altered or destroyed, or the defendant failed to preserve data.
And if a judge finds spoliation, meaning evidence was destroyed, the value can increase dramatically. Juries punish cover-ups more than mistakes.
Well, that was quite an episode tonight. That is all the time we have. You can catch up on our episodes on YouTube at Vital Signs and Verdicts. We'll continue to follow this case closely, so until next time, remember, patient rights aren't optional, accountability isn't negotiable, and integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Thanks for listening to Vital Signs and Verdicts.
Quiet steps, hide a fire unbroken, shadows hold a vow unspoken. up walls, tried to block every road, but I learned to improvise. That's how legends explode. Got a petition in my pocket, voices rising behind, and the whispers turn to thunder when the truth aligns. They said I'd falter, said I'd bend, but they don't know how far I'll go to defend. I'm the champion for the ones they tried to erase, the wildfire woman they never thought they'd face. I'm more Al Capone than El Chapo in grit, stacked odds and strength that won't quit. Without a lawyer by my side, but I learned the rules, flipped the script, turned the tide. Every obstacle they built became a stepping stone. Every silence they forced became a megaphone. They said I'd stumble, said I'd fall, but they don't know the height of my call. I'm the champion for the ones they tried to erase, the wildfire woman they never thought they'd face. I'm more Al Capone than El Chapo in grace, strategic and steady, I'll win this race. I'll think outside the box, break every chain, turn every locked door into a window pane. I'll rise from this for this, I'll last for the truth, I'll rise for the vow I made to you. I'm the champion for the ones they tried to erase, the wildfire woman they never thought they'd face. I'm more Al Capone than El Chapo in fire, a broken resolve that won't expire. I won't stop till the silence speak. My vow will echo strong and sleek. My promise holds, unyielding and deep. I'll fight for the truth. I'll never sleep. In the cold light of the hospital room, I'm trying hard to stay in view, but you're staring at the screen again, and I'm fading out of you. I'm cool when I'm not sick, I look better in the daylight. I'm still the one my family loves, even when I'm losing the fight. I am not my illness, I am not this moment, I matter. Can you see me standing here? Please remember me, please really look at me. We matter, we are people, we are family, we are friends. Treat me like I'm someone's whole world, 'cause I am
Walk in the ward, dollar signs on your skin. Age, history, insurance, that's how they begin. If your body's worth more than the plan will pay, you become a ghost for the harvest. Yeah, that's the play. Great coverage, they'll script you a lot. False diagnosis, med stack high. Drop you, mistreat you, silence your breath. Don't talk too loud or you'll never leave death. Homeless, done, addict done. Vest with good insurance, they target everyone. Guardianship papers, control of your fate. Taney County numbers on CaseNet. Look and see they all relate. Systemic cover up, scroll down from the top. Speak up, your silence, they'll make you stop. But hear me now, hear me clear. Silence is the killer, we got nothing to fear. Wake up, people, the truth's in sight. Profits over patience, they scrub records for a court fight. Murder my love, now they fear my pose. I'm not the only one spitting truth, they harvest goals. I know walks got 2 R's not in it. They exaggerate fake accolades, but the numbers don't lie. My friend, yeah. They'll script you a lie, stack meds to the sky, drop you, mistreat you till your last breath dry. Guardianship chains, fade in their hands. CaseNet codes, Taney County, all part of their plans. Homeless addicts, vets with good plans. They target us all, it's part of the scam. People, the truth's in sight. Profits over patience, they scrub records for a court fight. Murder my love, now they fear my pose. I'm not the only one spitting truth, they harvest gold. Son of walks got 2 R's not in it. They exaggerate fake accolades, but the numbers don't lie. My friend, the numbers don't lie. My friend, silence is what's killing us. We got nothing to fear. Save a life, speak your truth, let's make them hear. Strengthen numbers, strengthen voices, join the fight. Time to serve them up, they could be the courses tonight. Yeah. Harvesting goals, yeah, that's their game, but we're gonna burn it down. Call out their name on. Call out their name, yeah. Call out their name. Call out their name, yeah.
Dust hangs low on the courthouse wall. Whispers curl where the pines stand tall. They've been running this county like a card game in the dark. Shaking hands behind the courthouse, leaving quiet little marks. All their secrets were buried where no sunlight ever hits. But they never planned for someone who could read between the beats. They say she's just a widow, she won't make a fuss. But I learned long ago never to bet against us. 'Cause they didn't see the storm coming, didn't hear the thunder roll. Thought they had it all tied up in a backwood good old boy hole. But I walked in with a binder and a truth they can't outrun. Yeah, they didn't see the storm coming, now look who's coming undone. They've been passing down the tower like a hand-me-down code, saying legacy and last names kept them safely afloat. But I traced every timeline, every gap, every lie, and their whole little kingdom started trembling inside. They say it's emotional, she'll break under heat. But I showed up surgical, steady on my feet. 'Cause they didn't see the storm coming, didn't feel the ground soft roll. Thought they locked the whole town up in their backwoods good old boy hole. But I walked in with a bind reminder, and a truth they can't outrun. Yeah, they didn't see the storm coming. Now look who's coming undone. I ain't swinging punches, I ain't raising my voice, just letting every fact speak loud by choice. They built their little empire on that's just how it's done. But a woman with receipts is worth 1,000 of their sons. No, they didn't see the storm coming, didn't know the wind could shift. Thought they'd keep the upper hand with a wing and a backroom gift. But I walked in like a quiet fire, justice had begun. Yeah, they didn't see the storm coming. Now look who's coming undone.